All right, what's up, guys? Day three, semen retention, no weed. What can I talk about? Day two, I woke up in the morning. I went to the gym even though I didn't want to. For y'all that live in a warm weather place, it's cold as hell. I can show you guys footage of what it's like outside for us, but it's snowy, it's cold. I live in one of the coldest, well-known places in the world. I'll just leave it at that. So, what am I really wanting to talk about? Why do semen retention? That's a big deal. There's benefits that people talk about, but the biggest thing about doing semen retention is having control over yourself. If you can have more control over yourself, you're going to have more control over your reality. If you can have more control over reality, you can create more of the reality you want. And while you're living life, what you want to do is live life how you want it. So basically, semen retention is just one way to better your life by having more control over your life and the things that ruin men, which is our lack of self-control and maybe what we may describe as vices. So, one of the reasons, many reasons why to do SR. Another thing that I want to talk about is weed. And I'm going to tie this in with the big picture of the video today. Today, other than talking about why I'm doing SR and no weed, and I'm gonna tie it back to this, the importance of your self-talk. I was thinking about how I'm going to progress with this journey. Conclusion, document. You don't have to create, you don't have to think, document. By documenting, you're expressing. This can help you even artistic and creative pursuits. Sometimes if you're feeling you have writer's block, you're feeling that you're not producing in a manner that maybe you need a creative idea, something innovative, just express something, let something out, because you're trying to be subjective. You're trying to edit before it comes out, right? As I'm talking to you, I don't have a script. So even though I know that I have a knack for being able to speak, which is why I know that I should make more content, but my biggest thing is to document this journey. Journal, record, document. And what I'm saying is, now what you need to remember is that if you're creatively blocked, just express. But these things come back down to, what are the things that you tell yourself? What you tell yourself really creates your reality. I had to really think about this, man. How to go forward in life is that you're always, quote unquote, manifesting, creating. You're doing things, you're bringing things about. And the thing that one must remember is that, realistically speaking here, I came to the conclusion that as I'm overthinking making content, I just have to turn on the camera and talk. What am I telling myself? And then I got to a second conclusion, which is self-talk is so important. Define your purpose, right? You have to talk to yourself about it. How do you want to live your life? You have to talk to yourself about it. Thinking, for the most part, you're drawing from different places, the ether, the infinite, all this stuff, but bro, you're talking to yourself. So my biggest point in this video is realizing that when you talk to yourself, you are creating your reality. And what happens is, we talk to ourselves, okay? You start with your thoughts. Eventually, you talk to yourself so much that you start to believe. And once you start to believe, what happens is now you don't question what you think. You just say, hey, for some reason, this is what I believe, this is reality. And long story short, what often happens as well is after we believe, we become subconsciously, physiologically, emotionally attached to these things. And they're like thought forms, they're like these things that basically dictate our life. And they all in our subconscious. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you want to change your life, because that's the biggest thing, right? When I'm doing SR, I'm saying that I know that this is good for my self-control. And when I talk about self-control, I'm talking about basically just living your life. And what you want to do is that you definitely, most likely, unless you're in a really bad place, You want to get out of a bad place, or you want to make where you're at better, which is always about growing and getting better. And so the point of what I'm saying is, you start getting better. You can listen to all these type of things, but let's say you listen to a 2-hour video. If it's not changing your self-talk, you're not going to change. And I realized self-talk, you need to talk to yourself so much that you start believing it, and you'll know that you start believing it when you start feeling different. So you talk to yourself to a point where you start to feel something, and once you start to talk to yourself and feel something, when you start to believe it, it's going to hit your subconscious. Now, we have so many things in our subconscious, bro. But the thing is that even with 1% of your conscious, and you use your conscious, your mental faculties as they are right now consciously, you can use them, even 1%, to impress 99% of your subconscious. As in, your subconscious is 99%, even if it's that, 1% of you using your conscious faculties can start to affect your subconscious. So it's to say the biggest thing, your self-talk, and I'll use an example. The present you is the future you, okay? And the present you is the past you. I know it sounds very hard to grasp. These are a little bit of advanced concepts, and I'm into a lot of stuff, and esoteric, not esoteric, psychology, science, all this stuff. I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you this. You enter our world here on our channel for the once. Future you is equal to the past you, which is equal to the present you, which is to say that in this present moment, you can't undo the past. You can't necessarily just tell yourself that you can jump into the future, but the present you is the future you. So what I'm saying is, if you talk to yourself in a way where, for example, you're on the couch and you're like, man, I'm a lazy guy. I'm not gonna go do the dishes and the laundry. That's what it's gonna be. But when you start to talk to yourself differently, right? Because sometimes if you think thinking, I feel like sometimes the concept or trying to understand what thinking is kind of tough if you think about it. What am I really doing when I'm thinking? You might be, I'm using my brain or whatever, things are coming in my head. But once you talk to yourself, you know that you're doing an action that is proactive and you're in charge of something. Sometimes we may think that we can think, but you ever notice how when you're overthinking, it's almost as if it's out of control, like your mental energy is out of control, or even sometimes you could think, but I realize when you're thinking, try to understand or try to perceive it as, or try to input that if I want to create my reality, I need to talk to myself. And you know what I've realized? Talk to yourself out loud. Talk to yourself out loud. And a great exercise for people who are not where they want to be, it's because you have a negative self-talk. You have things that you've accepted in your brain to the point that you don't question them, and they run your life. Your life is just run on programs, subconscious programming. It's just all these things that are just automatic. Like you have a program, you have these automations. And what you need to do in the moment is start to talk to yourself differently. Now, because I know that I'm good at talking and convincing, I'm realizing how powerful this is, but it becomes easier when I'm doing semen retention and no weed. When you start realizing how powerful lust is like almost like being lustful is almost like being drunk. And smoking weed chills you out. It makes you very susceptible to things. It makes you very loose, chill. And it's not that being loose or chill is not bad. It's not good. But you got to know what weed does to you. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is, the moral of the story, the conclusion of this video, day 3 of semen retention, it's not my first rodeo with semen retention, is that you have to be able to talk to yourself. And that's the biggest thing. I can make all these goals, list of goals. But at the end of the day, it's what I talk to myself. I can write down on a paper, oh, this is what I need to do. And you might do it. But you need to start to talk to yourself differently in order to keep knocking down goals and be able to do and complete your goals in a way where it's going to not feel as if you're fighting so much. It's like you need to understand that you've been convinced, or you're constantly convincing yourself. You've been convinced that this is how I need to live my life, and you don't question it, because we live on habits, we live on automations, we live on these rituals, we live on these things that like most of your life is not going to change, and a small part's going to change, and you need to decide these small things that are going to be able to change the bigger things. And your self-talk is one of the biggest things. And that's what I'm realizing, that right now, when I think about my purpose, my biggest purpose is to love myself and better my life. And by doing so, I want to better other people's lives. But to be able to do that, let's say you have a goal, that's the product. How will you do that? One of the biggest processes, because you can have a goal, but you need to have a plan. What's the process? What are the things? It's like James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits, which is a great book. It's not always about the product, it's about the process. It's not always about what happens at the end, it's the systems that get you to the end. And so it's like, it's not just about saying that you want money, I want money. What is the process that's going to get you the money? And sometimes it has to be physical task and it has to be a mental attitude. But what I'm trying to tell you, okay, is right now, if you are one of the ones, this channel is for one of the ones. You're one of the ones. The ones. For the ones. Self-talk. So for example, a great way, if you, again, are not in a great place or you want to get better, is you have to start noticing your self-talk. You have to start noticing your self-talk to the point that whenever you notice that you're negative, you have to take a second and stop that thought. Because you think, oh, I'm going to go make some money. I'm going to go do all these things. I'm going to do whatever it is, e-commerce, real estate. I'm going to go get a second job. I'm going to go get that girl. But you're focused on a product. And even though there are physical actions, which is a part of the process, the mental part of it is like, how do you really change your mental? Think about it. I say that a lot of life comes in threes: mental, spiritual, physical, whatever. You can talk about, how like emotional is here, or you could say like whatever you want to make things binary, three things, whatever. There's a big mental aspect to everything. And I think that the mental aspect is very, very important, because I always think that God is very important, but how can you connect to God if you're not mentally well? And if you're not mentally well, that's okay. But I mean that, like, I would say better if you are not mentally capable. If you are way out of it, it's very hard to talk to God or God trying to talk to you. So what you need to do is get your self-talk better. You got to basically think about it as, if I'm doing SR and no weed, I convince myself into doing this. Because most of the time we have habits that we can't comprehend how automatic it is. So imagine you have a hobo walking around on the street. You're going to try to tell them to do something else, and it's going to be so hard for you to get through to them. That's like your subconscious. But if you're constantly talking to them, something might click in them, like, I need to listen to this guy. And that's the way you need to look at it. Sometimes your subconscious is like a little kid. Sometimes it's like a grown adult. All of these things, talk to yourself, convince yourself, be your biggest fan. And this comes back down to what? You have to talk to yourself. Because thinking sometimes is deliberating. It seems like it's something that's outer. I'm thinking about this. You could be thinking about yourself. So it's like, okay, it's almost like, but self-talk. What do you tell yourself? And all that matters, by the way, is as you're trying to accomplish big things, you're going to be like, oh man, this is going to be so hard. Talk to yourself in the moment. Don't always think, okay, like in the past, like you have like these things, oh, she did this to me. This is not you presently talking to yourself. If you hear negative self-talk, you say, no. Like, for example, if there's something that says I'm lazy, I'm not good looking, just try talking to yourself in the moment. No, I am good looking. I am productive. And that's better than zero, because you're going to be like, what's the point if I know that the past is this and my future is not looking bright? Be present, which is another thing, the ability to be present, right? These are all things that like are so important, but we overlook them, right? So I guess it's two big things that are helping me with two big things that are helping me with one big thing. Being able to be present and start talking to yourself properly. And by being present, you will start to notice your negative thoughts, right? And meditation can help with this, but just remember, be present. And you'll know that you're present when you don't think from a point of habit. You'll start to interrupt your thought patterns. Present, self-talk, these things help with semen retention and no weed, which helps with the bigger purpose of bettering your life. Didn't want to make this video too long. Self-talk. Guys, just know self-love is often the solution. Okay? Love y'all. Peace.